Hi. A few weeks ago I made a temporary repair on the radiator on my CBR1000RR 2006 model, UK model. The radiator was perforated, so I made a temporary repair with body filler. It's held out okay, but I ordered a new one which has arrived today. It did arrive damaged, so I've had to repair it. It's come from via eBay from a Chinese supplier. It looks reasonably well made, and it's nice and light. The alloy bracket seemed quite soft. It got damaged in transit and it had bent into the cooling fins, but I did manage to bend it out all right. I notified the supplier and I offered to try and repair it, and they said yes, try and repair it. So whether they'll offer some sort of compensation, I've no idea at this stage. But anyway, I'm not surprised that it was damaged, because it came in a flimsy cardboard box, wrapped in flimsy blown polystyrene sheeting. That's all. It's the only protection. So no wonder it took a month to arrive, and I'm not surprised that it was damaged. It cost. It was listed at £118 on eBay. It was also £40 on top of that for delivery, and then once it arrived in this country I received a letter to say that I had to pay another £20 customs duty, which I did. So that, I think that amounted to about 180 odd quid, which would have been fine if it wasn't damaged. I mean, it should still be okay, I think, so I'll go ahead and fit it. So the object of the exercise today is to remove the fairings, which I'll go through step by step, and take the old radiator off and fit the new radiator and refill it with coolant. Yeah, the bike's 14 years old, so we want it to last another 14. Maybe not me being the owner, but whoever takes over after me. So let's get on with the job then. Okay, first things first, I've put the Fireblade onto a paddock stand, as you can see, and given myself access all around the bike. So position it so you can work on it from both sides. The top fairing, the part with the screen, doesn't need to come off for removal and replacement of the radiator. You will need to remove this upper left fairing and the lower left fairing, which is wraps around the engine at the bottom there, goes all the way to just behind where the side stand is, and the same on the other side. So there's 4 panels to remove, 2 upper and 2 lower. So we'll start by doing the upper left. So it's that screw, that screw. There's a plastic screw here which when you turn it just pops up. I bought new ones in advance to replace the old ones. There's this screw, this screw, this screw, and one just behind the side stand there. So we'll start by doing them. Okay, I've taken out 6 metal screws and 1 plastic type screw, like that, which goes in there, from each side now. I've supported the lower, 2 lower sections which are still attached to each other. There are 2 plastic, don't know whether you can see in there, yeah, maybe you can just see the 2 plastic, if I can get the light right, yeah, they're still in, and there are 4 right under at the front, there, 2 there, 1, 2 and 2 there, 1, 2. So they're the next things to be taken off. Okay, what I've actually done is removed the two front ones on the silver part of the fairing for this bike, and that has now actually released both parts of the lower fairing, but they're still attached to each other. But I've supported them on blocks, and I'm thinking that both are going to come off together now. Yeah, so that's released both lower parts, although they're still attached to each other. Now that I've dropped it off, it's much easier to get to the other hop rivets, so I'll just take them off now. Okay, now these are out. These just push in like that, or if you push them from behind, they pop up and come out easily enough. So that's the remaining 4 are out, and this is the lower left side off the bike, and that's the lower right side. Okay, after the 2 lower fairing panels have been removed, there's a screw like so, just behind the front wheel on the inner part, and one on this side. If you remove both of those, you'll then be able to access a little tab. I'll see if I can get some more light on it. A little tab there, you might be able to just see it. So once you've released the 2 tabs, you might be able to see them a little bit better. That fits into that, and same on the other side. Once they're disconnected, this section comes out. So we'll put that over there with the others. Then moving up a little bit, you'll find another plastic screw on the inside of this inner section, and the same at the other side. So they need to be removed. And then again, a little bit higher up, just about level with the top of the front mudguard, there's another one at each side, so they need to be removed. Right, so we've got the 3 of that type of plastic screw from the right hand side and 3 from the left hand side, so these inner pieces are now starting to come loose. So then we've got 2 plastic type rivets there. You can see clearly on this bike it's like the silver fairing and the black inner piece. So it's the 2 rivets. Can't seem to get a focus very well, but I'll go at one of them. So just a small flat bladed screwdriver just seems to pop them off quite easily, and then you can. It's imperative that you get this one off right at the very front before you try to take the side fairing off, because that actually holds 3 pieces at that point. It's the part of the fairing with the screen, the upper fairing, and the inner black plastic piece here. So we'll see if this back one can come off with one hand. I'm not sure if it will. No, I'm going to need to put the camera down. Right, that's the rear one out. See if I can get a shot of it. A little plastic type rivet that pops in it, and if you can get behind it and push it, it comes out like that. So that should now release the inner plastic piece. So we try and get a shot of that off the bike there. So that's the left side, sorry, the right side inner plastic piece. So we'll now do the same for the left inner plastic part. So it's two rivets again, the front one and rear. So give me a minute to get them off. Okay, now they're both disconnected. I'm finding the best way is to use a flat blade screwdriver. Just gently prise, and the first part pops out, and then you can pull the rest of it out. But on this side, you can't remove the plastic in a piece because it's actually attached to some electrical components. I think it's the rectifier and flasher unit. Just got one of the. So again, another one of those that when you push from behind it pops up, and when you push it from the outside it clips into place, and the rear one as well out. So that's all you need to do for the moment. The upper parts can be disconnected now. So now we've got the inner pieces free. If you grasp the fairing just adjacent to the headlight and pull it slightly away, you'll find that these, you can see where the shaped pieces are slotted. So for the indicator connectors, you lift the little tab with the screwdriver and it should just disconnect like that. So this is where you can now lift the left upper part of the fairing away. And of course it's just repeats for the other side. See how far I get with one hand. So once again pull it away from, so that the slotted tabs come out through of the slots. Keep hold of it, lower part of it gently onto the floor. See if I can demonstrate the disconnecting this. It's getting a screwdriver under that, lift it, and it just comes away. So for the purposes of changing the radiator, that's all we need to remove as far as the fairing goes. You can now clearly see the coolant reservoir and the radiator itself. This is one that I repaired a few weeks ago. It was perforated just along this side edge here. So I cleaned it all off, tested it. I could see water just seeping through the corroded alloy. So I just put, I don't know, a couple of millimeters covering of body filler on. It's been fine for a couple of weeks. I've only done a couple of 100 miles. But the object of the exercise really was to flush the system. So I filled it with new coolant. And as I say, I've done a couple of 100 miles. It should be nicely flushed, so I'm going to refill it with, I'm going to fit the new radiator and refill with new coolant. While I had it apart, I painted up the fan mount and cleaned everything as best I could. So to drain the coolant, the first thing to do with the bike cold is to remove the radiator cap. And we're going to be looking at draining the engine part first. So the drain screw is around the left hand side, directly in front of the gear lever. There's one screw closest to where the gear lever pivots, so it's the next one forward of that. That's the drain screw for the coolant. So we'll start with doing that. Right, to drain the coolant, just slacken off the drain bolt. It's a 10mm AF. I've got a clean bucket to put it in, although I don't intend keeping it. I intend putting new coolant in. It's coolant comprises of 50% distilled water and 50% antifreeze. So we'll look at that in a minute when I come to fill it. Right, in the meantime, once you've slackened it off, it should start draining out. In this case, it was new coolant a couple of weeks ago. It's like a lime green colour. So we'll just leave that drain like that. If you try to take the screw right out, it'll just flood out all over. So just do that and maybe go and have a cup of tea or something. Okay, the last few drops are coming out now. That's what's gone into the bucket. Maybe we can take this right out now. Right, there's the drain screw right out. Just the last bit coming out. Make sure you've got the reservoir cap, radiator cap off. It'll come out better. And another thing worth mentioning, if you didn't already know, that try not to get the coolant on your paintwork. So that's the radiator cap off, and the reservoir cap, it's just a rubber thing like that. That won't drain back in for the moment. You'll need to drain that separately. This is the coolant that I use, Prestone, and I use it in the car as well, actually. 50-50 mix. I pre-mix it in that's in an old screen wash container, and it's 50-50 mixed with deionized water, so that's cheap enough to buy. It just stops any chance of anything in the tap water, any whatever's in the tap water can cause corrosion, so it's better to use deionized water. Right, that's the next step coming in a minute. Okay, I'll put the drain screw back in for now. We'll just move the bucket round underneath the coolant reservoir, and see if we can pull the rubber tube out from underneath, and that should drain into the bucket. Yep. So that's with the reservoir cap off. Just allow that to drain into the bucket. Okay, the reservoir's drained now. So if you thread the overflow pipe out from the plastic shield and up through the actual the run, and then undo this bolt here that holds the reservoir, and then pull up over, you'll see that the tab on the bottom of the reservoir comes out of the rubber bung there, and that can be, I'll make sure it's drained properly. There we go. So that can be put to one side. I tend to just put the nuts and bolts back in place so as I don't lose it. Next thing, you can see that I've already undone this Jubilee clip, and to remove the hose from the top hose from the radiator. I quite often find if you use a flat blade screwdriver, just push it up underneath and then get ordinary WD-40, put the nozzle up, just give it a squirt, and just move it round side to side. I mean, this one has been off a couple of weeks ago, but it's still seem to grip quite well. So once you've done that and give it a good pull from side to side, that's the top hose removed. If you just take the Jubilee clip and put it to one side, somewhere safe, and then it's a case of moving round. Oh, while I'm here, we need to disconnect the fan, which is that electrical connector there, and then move round to the other side to disconnect the lower hose. So to disconnect the electrical part of the fan, you might be able to see there's a little tab at the end of the screwdriver there. Just move it out. Move it the way I'm taking the video, from right to left, so towards the back of the bike, and then just pull the, I don't think I can do it with one hand. Just pull the connector out. I can't do it with one hand. So that's the electrical wiring disconnected from the fan itself. So now round to the other side. I've slackened off the Jubilee clip. I've prised the pipe away a little bit, the hose away a little bit with the flatbed screwdriver, and squirted a little bit of WD in, so that quite nicely just comes off like that. A few little drips. So the next thing, that's the radiator all disconnected. It's just a matter of undoing the mountings now. So there's one underneath there, one right at the bottom, and I believe the other one just pulls sideways. Yeah, so I'll undo those. Okay, so I've undone the bottom bolt, which is one bolt. It's one bolt in the centre. You can see the bit that it fastens to there sticking up. So that's M10, and then there's the other one here is M8. Now, bearing in mind the radiator is still full from that hose down over. There's nothing being drained out from that section, so there is still coolant in the radiator. So, okay, with the bottom bolt undone and the top left-hand side bolt undone, that releases the radiator from its two lugs at the top. So just drain out anything that's left in. And that's the radiator off. Once the radiator's off, you can lift this black plastic protector, lift the tabs from the bottom, and just slide it out from its tabs on the top. So that can be put aside to be refitted to the new one. I think it looks like we're going to have to reuse the rubber mountings. Obviously we've got to take the fan off, which is held on by 3 bolts. So we'll get this off now and see if we can transfer everything over to the new radiator. Okay, with both radiators on the bench now, the first thing I've found when I've undone the 3 fan mounting bolts and transferred it to the Chinese radiator, is that if you line the one that I can't do anything about, that's screwed into the radiator itself. So to align that one up, this one here was bent, so I can forgive that one for not being exactly right, although it's not far out. But that one is, well, nowhere near. So I'm going to have to modify something. So I suppose I can either try to bend the mountings on the fan itself, or bend the mountings on the radiator, or maybe a little bit of both. But I'm thinking I'm just going to try and bend the mountings on the radiator. I do have some new captive nuts like this, so I'll replace those with new. So I'll see how that goes, try to modify things so that can fit. Okay, with a little bit of bending and tugging and twisting and cutting, I've managed to fit the fan to the new radiator. I've also used some Loctite 242 on the bolts just to make sure they don't vibrate free. Not that there's much vibration, but we don't want it coming off. Right, so far so good. Time to transfer the rubber bungs or lugs. Okay, this is the little rubber mounting piece removed from the bracket. A little bit of hot air gun, just warming up slightly with a hot air gun. You'll find it's so much easier to come out, and then basically a little wipe with some tyre dressing brings it up like new. Right, as I mentioned earlier, I had the radiator off a couple of weeks ago to repair it temporarily till the new radiator came. During that time I also replaced both air filters. That's what they look like on the 06, 07 blade. So they were quite mucky. They were quite possibly the original ones, in fact. I'm not absolutely sure about that. The bike's only done 24,000 miles, I think. So this is what I used, the high flow filter, 2 of those. I also changed the oil, so that was the oil that I put in. Motul, the motor oil, which I always use. I put a K&N oil filter in as well. I also at the same time changed all the brake fluid, pumped the old stuff out with new stuff in behind it, put new brake pads in, back and front, and I did actually take one spark plug out. They're a little bit difficult to get to, but managed it, and it looked fine. They supposedly had been changed on the last major service, which I had done a couple of years ago, so I just left those in. I just put the one I took out back in and left the others in. So I've ridden it since, and it's yeah, the brakes are sharper, and runs nice and smoothly. So here we go on now to attempt to fit the radiator. Right, we've transferred the 4 mounting rubbers over, the 2 in the top and 1 on this side. I've also fitted the plastic protector and obviously the mounting rubber in the bottom, which has the metal insert which goes from that side like so. There's a metal insert also in what is the top left of the radiator. There isn't one in the top right of the radiator because that fits onto this that's already on the bracket on the bike. There's no screw, that the radiator just slides onto that and fastens it with one bolt at the other side at the top, and also the bottom one there. The other rubber bung, if you remember, is the mounting for the coolant reservoir. Okay, we'll see if we can fit the radiator. One other point I thought I'd make is these two top brackets. Before I fit the rubber mounts, I had to actually bend them out over. So when I measured from the original Honda radiator, or if you put it up to see how it compares, they were far too close in, so I've had to bend them out over. So just a point to remember. Right, the Chinese radiator's gone on. The bottom mount took a little bit of bending, a little bit of stress to get the bolts to line up, but it has actually gone on. But one thing I've noticed, if you look at the standard Honda radiator, this neck where the hose fits bends sort of directly towards the middle of the radiator. You can see the line there. But if you look at the Chinese one, I've got it in a similar line there, and this neck is going off to the right. The hose does fit on. It just seems to it's just coming from the wrong angle slightly. What I did notice was also that it was a little bit sharp around that edge on the bore and the OD. So I've used a little bit of emery to take the roughness off, because we wouldn't want any chafing or anything. But I'll see if I can get it on. Okay, I've managed to fit the coolant hose with a slightly awkward bend now, from the neck of the radiator, which was bent slightly awkwardly. It's gone on reasonably well. I've sort of pulled this hose off the metal pipe slightly, still clamped on perfectly okay. Same here on this one. So it appears to be okay. It's jutting out slightly around this bit here, but I'll have to keep an eye on that and maybe just check it doesn't chafe its way through the hose. It's not really acceptable, because that should have been turned round probably about another 10 degrees. Another thing that I had to do was I had to bend the bracket that the coolant reservoir sits into, the rubber mounting point there. I've had to bend that down, and also file the hole in it's sort of a nylon coolant tank reservoir. I've had to elongate the hole in that, so I bent that down as much as I dare so it doesn't slip out. But there again, that's probably 10mm too high. So this Chinese company, the quality control obviously isn't that good as far as fit's concerned. Another thing I did was I did actually order in advance all new Jubilee clips, but the ones that came, it's probably my fault. They're a little bit too wide. I'm not comfortable fitting those on. They're the right diameter, but they're a little bit too wide. So I've ran the old ones round. They're just a little bit corroded. The band was okay, it was the screw part. So I've ran them round on the wire brush wheel that was on my bench. Got all the rust off, and then smeared them with copper grease. So that's the 4 there, and this one for the opposite side. So we're nearly there. I just need to connect up the other side, and we'll be filling the radiator up. Okay, the hoses are all connected up on the left hand side now. I've taken the Jubilee clips off, cleaned them and smeared them with copper grease, so it's all tight. So now we're going to be looking at, I've already got some pre-mixed here, 50-50 Prestone antifreeze, and I'm using deionized water. So just to top the amount I've got up here, so just fill a measured amount of antifreeze into a measuring receptacle, add that to the mix, and then obviously the same with the deionized water, and then we'll go ahead and start topping the bike up. Okay, we're back now. The radiator's filled right up, and I've put the radiator cap back on. I've filled the reservoir to, I tried to aim for about halfway between the upper and lower. It doesn't seem to be sitting quite as level as it was before, probably with the mounting being bent slightly, but I think that'll be fine. I did this a couple of weeks ago and I had no problems with air locks or anything like that. So I've just done what I've done. I've poured it in slowly, trying not to get too much air in. Obviously, let it go glug glug glug. Let it settle itself down. Keep topping it up until it's just below the top. You might be able to see that from there, about half an inch below the top. One other thing, don't forget to connect the fan electrical connection back up. That's back on. So everything's on and tight. I've opened the garage door. I will open it further before I start it up. Don't want to get gassed. So we'll run it up to temperature now, up to until the fan kicks in. Let it cool down. Maybe do that a couple of times. When I filled the radiator a couple of weeks ago, the old radiator, I flushed it out about 8 times, refilled it and drained it and refilled it and drained it each time I ran it up to temperature. So it took I wasn't in any hurry. I was in lockdown anyway, so I took a couple of days over it. So here we go then, we'll fire up. Yeah, this particular bike's got 24,999 miles on, so not bad for a 14-year-old bike. So we'll warm it up and I'll come back when it's cooled back down again. Okay, so the bike's been run up to over 100 degrees C. I've let it cool a little bit. Not much, it's at 82 now. All seems good. There's definitely no leaks. So to be honest with you, I don't really see any point in waiting. I'll just go ahead and refit the fairing. I am keen to establish whether the fairing, once it's fitted, I'm keen to establish if the radiator is at the right angle and how it actually looks, if it looks a good fit. So yeah, the first step I'm going to do is fit the upper parts of the fairing. If you remember, we need to slot the little tabs into these and then move it. You put them in and then move it forward. So yeah, we'll start with that. Okay, starting with the left upper. Don't forget to reconnect the indicator before you do anything else. So just rest it somewhere where it's not going to get scratched. And just clicks into place. When I took the whole fairing off a couple of weeks ago, I cleaned inside and outside quite fastidiously, so it's still all very clean. They've only been out in the dry. So we're looking at these tabs here. Locate them into the slots. There's one at the back here as well. So that just has to go behind and push so in that direction until all the gaps are closed. It's probably a good idea to just temporarily put the location, a bolt interlocated to hold it. That's got to be done before you do anything with this inner piece here. So I've fitted one bolt loosely just to hold the fairing in the correct position. Now it's important when underneath here, when you come to the inner piece, which I hadn't removed completely, so I'm just making sure it's in the right position now. It's got to fit in behind, underneath the, I don't know how well you can see that, but the black part has got to fit underneath the silver part, so that that's its correct fitting. And also there are a few little tabs, very small tabs, don't know, let's see if I can get that, I can't quite, right, just on the end of my finger there now, you might be able to see on the inner piece there's a square slot, and on the silver piece there's a I can't get that one very well. Yeah, there's a silver piece that'll fit into that slot, so that's got to do that, and so on down. There's 2 or 3 of those. I'm just looking now, and it looks as if the new radiator may be impeding the fit of the inner piece, but I'm hoping I'm not going to have to trim it. But I'll go ahead and loosely fit now the right hand upper one and the right hand inner one, and just see how it looks. So it turns out the inner piece has got to go roughly in position first. It's not fastening or anything, it's just placed there. But in order to get the inner right piece in, I've had to undo the bolt for the coolant reservoir and just move it slightly out of the way, fit the inner piece in behind it, and then put the reservoir back on. So now I'm going to fit the upper right part, and obviously starting with the indicator connection. As with the other side, I've loosely fitted this bolt. You can see how the inner piece is still loose. The forward piece is slotted incorrectly. I've got to make sure that the black inner piece fits in behind with the tabs mentioned in a similar way for the left side. So I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, the 2 left-hand plastic rivets are in. So I found the best way to do this, I think the correct way, is you push the pin in until it's sticking out, you know, that amount, and then put that bit into the hole. So it's gone through 3 parts here. It's the upper fairing with the screen and the headlights, the in this case the left hand upper fairing and the left hand inner plastic piece. So it's gone in through all of them, and then you just press it from the outside and it clips so that the pin is slightly behind the main rivet part. And the same at the back. So they're both now in. So that's the 4. Now it is important that you make sure that the, in this case, the black bit sits behind the rim of the nose part of the fairing, the left hand part of the fairing that merges in with the nose, and the same on this side. So the rim of the silver bit is slightly protruding and not the other way around. You don't want the black part overlapping the silver part. Okay. At this stage, before you actually put the pop rivets in the lower section, so that's still just as it was a moment ago, this is the point where you've got to loosely fit both lower sections of fairing. So this one fits just up behind the upper fairing, so that sorry, I can't point so that goes in behind there, and that one in behind that hole. So it's easy enough to do at this stage. Everything's still quite pliable and slack. So I'll loosely fit both lower pieces at this point. It's worth noting at this point that the joint between the upper and lower at this screw here is just a straight screw, and at the back, just behind where the side stand kicks down, it's got a turned barrel part. So just make sure you're aware of the difference in screw before you put them back on. While everything's still relatively slack, I'm now going to fit the middle lower piece, not forgetting that there's a slot here at each side, and a tab at the end of each side of the inner piece. So see if you can get the tab into the slot first on each side, and then the rivets at the bottom. So I'll give that a go. Okay, you can now see how everything's in place. Just a couple of loose bolts in. So this is the point where you need to bring the middle lower section, the outer upper sections and the lower sections all together with the plastic rivets. So there's 4 together, but there's 5 pieces to fit together at this point. So we'll have a go at that. Okay, I've got the first of these type plastic rivets in there, so you can see how the rest of it all needs to close up like that, and just snaps into position like that. So there's 2 out of the 4, so that should have captured that part and that part so far, and then the other 2 are to join the lower section. So let's see if we can do that as well. Yep. Okay, they were easier to pop in because it's only going through 2 pieces, but that's going through 1, 2, 3 pieces. So that's it for that bit. I think we'll concentrate on now getting the screws in right up the inner part, and making sure the tabs are going in as well. So we've got the top of the inner part in from before. We've now got the bottom in, and now it's right down the sides of each one. Right, now that those 4 rivets are in place, I've managed to get that one in, which is a straight screw. That one, which is the type of screw with a turned piece on, like that. And I can go around and do the same on the other side now. And with the two others similarly in the other side, I've now come up to this top piece here, adjacent to the frame, and this is a straight screw, just like that one, which I can now go around and fit here. So once that one's in, it only remains for the two front. Make sure they're lined up. So there's one. The little plastic rivets. That one's in. We did the three down the inside on the left hand side, so make sure you get the three up the inside on the right hand side, and then that leaves, I believe, only these two right at the very back underneath the rear part of the lower halves of the fairing. You've got to make sure it interlocks correctly. That looks about right. Not really getting that on camera. Yeah, and then prepare the plastic rivet, put it into the hole. Again, it's difficult to do with one hand. Right, I've got that, got it in place, just needs pushing up with a click, and the one pointing towards the back wheel, which is easier to go in now because the first one's in. Little click, so that's on. But as yet there's nothing tight. Maybe all the fairing panel bolts are still slack, so now time to go around and just nip everything up. So that's the job completed then. In conclusion, what I would thoroughly recommend replacing all the plastic rivets. They're very cheap to buy. Packet of 10, about £2.50 of that type, and about the same for the other type of the screw head. So if you get those in advance, it makes the job a lot easier. You're not too worried about damaging them when you pull them out. I'll see if I can put a link on this video to give you some information of where I've got everything. Regarding the Chinese radiator that's now fitted, I suppose it looks okay. I'm a little bit disappointed overall, particularly with dimensional accuracy. The angle of that neck there has actually caused the fairing to, I'm sure it's sort of pushing it out a little bit, but it's gone back on alright. It looks fine. It's definitely touching the hose. Basically having to bend brackets and things for it to fit. It's shocking really, because it's just as easy to make something right as it is to make it wrong. They've got to make it, so they might as well make it right. I've had a lifetime in engineering, and that's one thing I do know for sure. You don't put your efforts into making something wrong. Just make sure it's right, and then continue to make it right. So, right, well, for £180 as opposed to about £700 for a genuine Honda part, which probably wouldn't look as good because it's not hand welded in the same way. Whether this one will last, who knows? It seems to function okay. I haven't actually ridden the bike yet. I've only just finished putting it back together, but so hope that's helped anyway, for anyone who was wanting to change the radiator, or at least drain the coolant and refill it, or even just take the fairing off. I've tried to do it in a little bit of detail because I did look online myself and there wasn't any great detail about the about removing the fairing on an 06, 07 blade. So superb bikes they are. Hope you're enjoying yours. I hope I've helped you in some way. Thanks for watching. Bye.